We can start the meeting. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Friday, March 22nd, 2024, and I am Larimer County Commissioner Jody Shadwick Nally, and I am the chair of the Legislative Committee for the Colorado Forest Health Advisory Council, and I call this meeting to order. And Courtney, if you wouldn't mind, could we do roll call? I think we do have quorum.
Yes, I will roll down the list. Samantha Albert.
Good morning.
Good morning, Samantha. Christy Belton. I see you, Christy. Good morning. Katie McGrath Novak. Looks like Katie's not with us today. Pat Dorsey. Morning.
Good morning.
Hi, Pat. Director Matt McCombs. Morning, Director. Commissioner Jody Shadwick McNally.
Present.
Good morning. Mark Morgan.
Here.
Morning, Mark. Julie Stensel.
Good morning.
Hi, Julie. Vice Chairman Sylvan Whiteskunk. Commissioner Veronica Medina. And Allison Lurch as proxy for Dan Gibbs.
I'm here.
Good morning, Allison. And I see Katie just joined, which is great. So we certainly have quorum today.
Great. Thank you so much, Courtney. Welcome, everyone. And let's get to our first item on the agenda, which is approval of the minutes. Did everyone have a chance to kind of look through those? And anybody have any questions or concerns? Okay, I'll welcome a motion to approve the minutes.
So move.
We have a second. Thank you, Julie. Without further deliberation, just last chance. All those in favor, please signify hand raising aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, anyone opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. So the next item, I believe, is a legislative update at where we are at. And I believe, James, you'll be doing that portion?
That's correct. We don't have a lot of movement right now in the legislature. Things are going to start to move, however. Last Friday, the Joint Budget Committee did their budget forecast, where the Legislative Council economists give their projected budget, and the Governor's Office of State Planning and Budget economists give theirs. Excuse me. And basically, they got those reports back. And it was decided in the middle of this week, so around Wednesday, that the Joint Budget Committee was going to be using the OSPB forecast, which was a much lower rate, to start budgeting to. And so once that budget is set and they write the budget, we'll have a better understanding how much money is out there for legislative bills, which is where this comes into play with us, because the bills that we're tracking here for the Forest Health Council all have appropriations tied to them. And so then it'll be up to the legislature to figure out how they spend that money. But as a quick kind of reminder, so Senate Bill 9 is the slash removal program. That one has an appropriation, so it's sitting, waiting for an appropriations committee. So once the budget's out, that one will likely move. Senate Bill 28, which is the study on biochar, that one also has an appropriation tied to it. So that one will finally move once that one's gone. And then we're tracking now 3 House bills. The first one is House Bill 1006, which was the Rural Grant Navigator that we've amended to put within the Colorado State Forest Service and took it out of OEDIT. Excuse me. And that one also has an appropriation, so we'll wait for that one to move. And then House Bill 1024 was the extended funding for the Live Wildfire Ready campaign. That one's just a pure appropriation, so we'll have more information. And then the final bill that we're tracking is House Bill 1300, which is the certification for wildfire mitigation at the point of sale for home sales. That one has been delayed a couple times. I think I remember telling this group that they heard testimony, and it sounds like the sponsors are willing to hear some of that feedback to decide how they can maybe get the bill across the finish line, because it's facing a steady stream of opposition. That bill was supposed to be up in committee on Tuesday the 19th to go over the action items. However, it was delayed, and it'll be back in front of the committee on March 26th. That one also carries an appropriation, so we'll have some more information on that one moving forward. But yeah, I think that's the best step that we have now, is that the budget, they actually have a budget that they're going to budget towards, and they can start finalizing the long bill with all of the departments and all their money. And so we should have a good idea, probably at the close of today, what that what do they call it? I'm blanking here. I'm sorry. The extra money they have to spend on bills. So once that's out, I'll probably send that to Courtney, and then she could probably send it along here just so we know if everybody's interested. But it's still just a game of wait and see right now. Are there any questions?
Questions from anyone? Okay, well, thank you, James. Appreciate the update. I've been following it from the other end of all the county commissioner associations. We meet weekly and multiple times. Seems like I'm in constant meetings talking about legislative stuff. So appreciate that update. Without any, I don't see other hands. Oh, Mr. Morgan, I apologize. I didn't see your hand.
All right. One quick question, James. Where would I go to look for the current updated version of the biochar bill?
I can send an email address, not an email. I can send the link to you in an email address if
All
that
right.
works for you.
That would be fine. Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay, last call for any questions. Okay, thank you again, James. Great job. Great information. We appreciate it. Let's move on to our next item, which is discussion and development of legislative recommendations. And again, I'll remind everyone this is for the next session, not this session, because this session is fastly accelerating to a very full agenda for this legislative session. So let's, Courtney, if you wouldn't mind bringing kind of the first document so we can start that discussion on what we have so far and how you did you want to facilitate or share a screen about the ideas that we have so far, or?
Yeah, I thought I would share the calendar first, just so we can all
Okay.
get on the same page about what sort of happens next. And then I'm happy to share my screen with some of the recommendations that we've been brainstorming. So right now, we're in our first deliberation meeting. Next week, we do not have anything scheduled, a meeting scheduled. The following meeting in April, we've extended it to an hour and a half. It's our second deliberation meeting. And that essentially is where we need to really finalize our recommendations. We're then going to share those with the council. And then we're going to have a meeting that's open to the council where people can come, ask questions. They can sort of interact with the committee and understand, how these recommendations came to be before they're presented at the April 24th council meeting where they'll be voted on. So that was sort of the idea for how we would move these through over the next month. Does anyone have any questions about that process, or does anyone want to change anything? I know, Jody, you suggested maybe inviting the full council to the meeting in 2 weeks. That's another deliberation meeting, so we can absolutely do that. The full council's welcome to come to any of these meetings. I usually just send the invitations, though, to the committee.
We can have that discussion. If I don't know what the rest of the council thinks about that. I just thought when we had our meeting last time with the full council, I think we spoke almost for a full hour. A lot of people had questions. And so I thought maybe they might enjoy or want to join in to maybe ask questions and see how we got to that point. And if they wanted to kind of hear, some of our deliberations. So I'm open to that. It also would potentially make our meeting a little longer because we have a lot of people who have not been part of the conversation but it would be great to have their feedback. So I see pros and cons with it, but I also want, anyone can join our meetings at any time and join us. So I'm just wondering how you all think and feel about that. Is anyone opposed to? I don't know how many people come. Anyone opposed to that idea? And I can't see everyone's hand, so you'll have to raise your hand. Mr. Morgan, did you raise your hand at all?
No, but I have no preference there. What everybody thinks would be most effective, I'm fine with. I don't think I have enough knowledge on this to decide which is going to be most effective. So somebody else should be driving that ship.
I agree. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with Mark.
Well, why don't you think about this, and maybe I'll ask that question again at the end of the meeting, and so we can get that out. So why don't you think about that as we're having our discussion and deliberation, and then we can ask that question again if someone will remind me that, so that we can, because I want to do what you all think is best and make sure that our since we have 2 deliberation times, I don't also want to take away from our time to really have our, we have our consensus and we have our great relationship with our group. And I don't want to also do anything to kind of disrupt our, kind of our process and how we all talk and we have those relationships. So I have been thinking about that as well. All right. So without further ado, let's move on to our the list that we have so far. Courtney, I'll go ahead and let you, if you want, or I can do this as well. It's up to you. Which do you prefer?
I think I can just sort of explain this document and then we turn it over to you for discussion. I've also shared it with you. This is a list of some of the things that have been discussed over the last few months. These are things that me and Commissioner Shadwick McNally and Director McCombs and James and Allison thought could be potential legislative recommendations. Of course, there's other topics that aren't on this list, and that's why everyone has access to this. Everyone can add to it. So since we have 2 meetings, it might be useful, at least in this first meeting, to decide which of these topics, or if there's other topics we want to add, you feel are priorities, like which ones really speak to you, which ones do you want to turn into recommendations, because there also needs to be a step where all the details are fleshed out. And that might be something, that could be a goal for the next meeting. And maybe the goal for this meeting is deciding, these 5 things we really care about, these few things we don't really think are in our wheelhouse or maybe aren't right to tackle right now. So yeah, everyone should have access to come in here. I'll try to keep my screen moving, to follow the conversation. Capacity certainly was a really big need that we keep hearing over and over. And I actually made a separate document that sort of broke capacity down into a few different categories. So if you guys do want to get into capacity, I can also share that. Yeah, but I sort of want to turn it over to the committee to talk about what recommendations or what topics really are important to you and which things did you hear about that were priorities over the last few months. And also, Pat, I do want to acknowledge your comment, and we can certainly add in here. I just wanted to let you speak to it before I just accepted it, but I can add something in about prescribed fire.
Yeah, Pat, would you like to go ahead and talk about that?
Yeah, and it wasn't specifically about prescribed fire, but I think on our last call, we did hear from Daniel Bowker and Shara about the need to get piles off of the landscape before we can do prescribed fire or before a wildfire hits. I think, we've already got a slash removal program. Maybe it's just like, how do we expand that to scale up where we really need to? If there are thousands and thousands of piles on the landscape, our landscapes still aren't fire resilient, no matter how much work we do. So if nothing else, I think we needed to have a placeholder on how we get some of that material off of the forest.
Thank you, Pat. And yeah, I agree. That's still a big question. as I was up watching them burn piles around Lily Lake and Rock National Park yesterday, in the snow. You could see the smoke from across the valley. So I drove over there between my meetings. And I was talking to some folks. They're having a slash day. This little tiny HOA is having a truck drive through the neighborhood, and everyone's supposed to be at the end of their driveway with their slash and throw it in the truck, and then they're going to take it to an air curtain burner somewhere. So someone has a big truck or trailer, and that's how their HOA is doing it. And I thought, well, at least, that's an innovative way that neighborhood's trying to take care of their own, slash removal from their property. So, and they have this day that they're all knowing this truck's going to drive through the neighborhood. So I was interested in how they kind of innovative came up with their own little plan. So, and they're all retired folks. So just sharing that little story certainly was heartening to hear that they are taking this very seriously and worried about their neighborhood and their resiliency. So, okay. So should we take these one by one? And I'm wondering, for me, I don't know how you all feel, as we go through this document, how about, I don't know how you feel, but for me, there's a lot on the paper and I don't know what we move off, but I'm wondering if we just work in a positive direction and take things that we really want to think are a priority over to another list, and then we can look at that list at the end. Does that make sense? Would that be okay? So we have less to look at? Is anyone okay with that discussion? Go ahead, Pat.
I apologize. I meant to hit the thumbs up and not the hand up.
Okay. All right, Courtney, if I don't know if you, okay, thank you, Katie. I hope you all don't mind. And I hate to ask staff to do that, but if we could, I'll just help read through all of these, and I'm going to read off the document. So I have, I see this and I want to just make sure raise your hand. So in case since I'm watching some of these screens, just to kind of help me make sure I don't miss your questions or your comments. So, and then we'll just move these things over to Paige, and I know we have only 5, but let's narrow the list. Doesn't mean it's permanently narrowed. Just want to make sure everyone knows we have these 2 meetings for deliberation. I want to make sure everyone feels that they're being heard and that their ideas. And I hope that all you've been having time to think about this and deliberate. So again, I appreciate all your comments and thoughts on this. So let's start with number 1. Mr. Morgan.
I'm sorry I jumped the gun there for you. I thought you were done. Number 1 is where I want to start. On our workforce development, I think our recruitment, I understand there was some movement in the bills in last year, but our recruitment has to start in high school or even before. We've got to make kids aware of, kids develop ideas on what they want to do fairly young. If we're going to develop a workforce, I think we need to be looking into, at a minimum, fairly early on in high school or junior high. And so anything that anybody's got for ideas there, I'm trying to think of the name of it, but I believe in the past, there were pretty successful programs. I believe it was Operation Learning Tree. And people got involved in the high schools and the junior highs. And what's surprising me lately is, in dealing a lot with some of the junior colleges, there seems to be kids have already got an idea what they want to do in life, or kids have no idea. There's kind of 2 ends of the spectrum. And I think we need to get in on the front end of that is all. So anything that we could do there and I believe in the last legislation, there was some outreach money for recruiting in the schools. Was that correct?
Yes.
I think I'm looking to expand that or implement it or see how we can, we can get that going.
Great. Great suggestion. So James, I hate to put you on the spot. Could you remind us all, because I remember this piece, but could you remind us all of the piece where it was supposed to get materials down to guidance counselors? And was that recommended, or was that a?
So that's excuse me, that's definitely in the bill. So as a reminder on this one, there was 2 pieces within that kind of workforce development. The first one is, you're correct. It's the Forest Service is tasked with creating like an outline of the industry that you can get to in the timber industry that is provided to high school guidance counselors. And so, excuse me, where that is in the process is the person on staff responsible for that for us was unfortunately on she was on maternity leave, and she's back in the office, and so that project is going to start to get ramped up again. So we should be able to get those materials in collaboration with other entities that are already doing this work into those high schools. But that second part, and I think the most like hands-on part, is the internships. So there's an internship program component with that, where part of that internship is paid through the grant money within Senate Bill 5. And so that's kind of, that part is still being kind of worked up in the framework, but there is going to be direct money to take kids in college and give them internship opportunities where they're actually, it's going to be a paid internship. So those are those two kind of pieces that are working in tandem, starting in the high school guidance counselor up until a college internship.
Okay, that's how I remember it as well. Mr. Morgan.
And what I'm asking for or probing for here is materials for the guidance counselor. I think we need a whole lot better sales program than just materials to guidance counselors. I see what's happening in schools and stuff, and we've got to get out of the gate sooner and more aggressively. The internships are fine, but to me, that's involved at a point past where I'm trying to enter this situation, I guess, or this problem. I want to get kids interested in high school and junior high. I want to get them involved in projects. I'm looking for ways to involve them in work projects so they can get an interest in it.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Christy.
Thank you. Is this something that, like, the local forest collaboratives in each of our communities would be able to do some presentations in the schools? Because I agree. I think it's maybe somewhat of a sales effort. I don't know how we would coordinate that, though.
So I have a suggestion just for our looking at our time. These are great questions. This would be, I think, good for putting on the list for us to discuss the details. I think this is a great discussion. I'm not trying to quell it, but I want to get through the list so we can kind of put that all on the big paper. And then next time we can go through and kind of flesh out these ideas, and maybe we can find some information like this. Thank you for sharing that, James. And then we can come back with some solid things that we might want to gel together. So is that okay with everyone? I don't want to cut off the conversation, but I just want to kind of get through the list and throw those ideas off onto the other list and then come back and fine tune them. Does that work?
Yes. Yeah.
Anyone opposed to that? Okay. I can't see you all, so I'm just going to, because of the screen. So great. Anything else there? Thank you all. You're awesome. What else is on that list? We, let's see. Forestry technicians. What does that, I don't try to remember that conversation. Where did this come from? The forest collaboratives, or I'm trying to remember where this came from.
Actually, that one came from me, and I was thinking just about another job class. I think we had talked about, there's a lot of need for professional job classes in forestry, but also people that have a high degree or some a higher degree of knowledge, but not necessarily a professional degree. Okay.
Everybody want to kind of push that over to the other list just to flesh out to think about? Okay, so how about, okay, I see thumbs up. Let's do. So right now,
what exactly do you want on the short list? Yeah.
So what the ones on the short list is target outreach to high school and junior high students, and funding, refining or kind of looking at how we the Senate Bill 5, the outreach for guidance counselors, what does that look like? Do we need to expand that? And then the forestry technicians.
Okay.
And then I think we also heard from the collaboratives. What I was interested in is, I know the collaboratives have also said this, we have the technicians or the folks out on the booths, but we also need kind of those folks who maybe advance up to foresters, or contractors, or silviculturists. And maybe that's something we need to look at. What does that look like, or what does that mean? And is there a program or funding to help support folks moving on to the next level? So those are like 3 or 4. Does that sound okay? And again, we can always go back and add more later. Okay. And again, I'm just trying to get us through our hour time. And I think, Courtney, we said we thought we'd go an hour and a half or 2 hours for maybe the next meeting. So I'll think about that too. That will make that decision at the end of the meeting. Okay, so we're moving on, but that doesn't mean we can't go back. So number 2 is one. Yes, thank you, Katie. That is the one I'm talking about. Thank you. Number 2, capacity support needed. And this is one that I'll be honest, this is one that we had put in last year, and this is one I'm very interested in. And we've heard, I think, even from the collaboratives, and that they want to see some capacity. And that was a recommendation for adding more money into the furworm for capacity, and specifically for that bucket. Maybe we just need to refine it and emphasize it more for the Wildfire Interim Committee and for the budget process. That's one I'd like to see on the list, but I don't want to, I want to make sure you're all okay with that one. Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, this is probably the number one that I would like to see on the list. I think hopefully we've got a really good idea of how important collaboratives are, and like even just in the last conversation we were talking about pulling them in for even things like outreach to high school students. And so I just think it's really important to emphasize how much we need these groups and try and get them as much resources as we can.
And hands raised, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Pat Dorsey. I just had a question. Is that something that needs to be legislative, or is that something that could be handled administratively?
I think it's legislative, because they have that already, but they don't have, that fund has only so much money in it, and we wanted to put more money into that specific bucket to increase it so they have more resources or larger amounts of money. Correct me if I'm wrong, James and Courtney, is that correct? Mr. Morgan.
believe-
Okay, sorry, James. Go
I was
ahead.
waiting for the answer there. Exactly how would you envision that money being spent? Are we going to hire somebody to try to do this? I mean, I'm trying to understand how that money translates. The goal is fine. How do we go about reaching the goal? What do we do with the money? What are you asking for? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Courtney and James, would you like to explain? I'll have you answer too, Katie. Let me ask James and Courtney to explain about the furworm.
I was going to
Um,
say,
yeah.
you're right. In if we're trying to get that extra $1 million for capacity building for collaboratives, it would be a legislative request, because we need to ask for that additional appropriation. I think Katie's probably best positioned to answer how it can be used. And so I'll defer to her, but yes, you're correct in your assumption that in order to get that additional capacity, it would have to be some type of legislative request.
Okay, Katie, thank you. Would you go ahead and help share us with how that would be used?
Yeah, so the Furworm program is an existing grant program. And so the good news there is that like all of the infrastructure is already set up. Everything's already good to go. It's just would be able to give more money out into more groups. So I believe there's kind of 2 portions of Furworm. There's more of a project side, which is like, we want to cut this many trees on this many acres, and then you give them the money and they go do that. The side of it that this, I believe, in my mind, is really focusing on is the capacity side. And so for that, historically, it's been like kind of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for here is, but like the capacity in terms of like machinery that you might need to do the project, or hiring a technician to do the project, that sort of thing. And then we've also, with the Forest Collaboratives Network, been advocating to have that capacity side expanded a little bit broader than that, to even be like project planning, facilitation of the collaborative, bringing the partners together. Kind of every step of that process would be supported by this capacity funding. And so it can kind of go a lot of different ways, but that's where it's going. And this, James might know, I think the furworm funding is broader than just collaboratives, but a lot of the collaboratives do benefit from that funding.
That's right. It's not for, it doesn't go as small as the individual landowner, but it can be like an HOA, but like community groups, organizations and stuff like that can reach out for that for that money. But yeah, you're right. It's not just targeted to collaboratives.
Yeah, and so it is really focused on getting the on the ground work done, but it's also supporting the long process that it takes to get that work done really well. I hope that helps answer the question.
Thanks, Katie. Christy, you have your hand raised.
Yes, and maybe Katie, you can answer this, and I'm gonna botch the question. But is there a way to basically ensure that the funding, the extra funding, would go to groups that are supporting the work that we think should be done, instead of, this is where it's not going to sound right, but basically instead of the organizations that are just better at writing grants? Does that make sense? Like, is there any sort of accountability so that extra money is going to the most useful places that will get us the return that we're looking for? Does that make sense, Katie?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. James, I think
Yeah.
James probably has a really
would-
good answer.
Yeah, I was
That's
going to
what I
ask James to answer that. Go ahead, James.
That's why I raised my hand. I think it, unfortunately, those grants are given out by who actually applies for them. So there is a competitive grant process where we rank those applications. And so it would have to be a dedicated, like, we're not just going to give money because we have the money. It is like this competitive thing where we go through and say, we'll rank this as a 1, we'll rank this as a 2. So it's not that we're giving the money to those people who are actually applying. So if there's like specific grants out there, we just have to, and this really isn't within our realm as the State Forest Service. We can't like be, hey, you guys should apply, but it's like we do want to do the most work that's the most important on the landscapes that need it the most, but it is an application process.
Thank you. Mr. Morgan.
Yes, I really appreciate your comments there, Christy. In all the years I've been doing this, money tends to follow the money. And the money goes to those places who have the best grant writers and they have the best programs. But money oftentimes does not follow the need. And so this whole process today, I'm looking to just put my agenda right out front, try to empower our agencies, our state agencies, the State Forest Service, to empower them to make wise decisions for these uses of these resources. Somewhere there needs to be some professional intervention there as to where this money comes down and where it gets spent. And, you know, the most bang for our buck. And I guess that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, so I'm going to keep us moving along to keep getting all, so we can get through the whole list and get that on paper. Does that work out okay? These are great conversations we can continue when we get to the other list. Would that be all right with everyone?
Fine.
Okay, make sure, if you don't, speak up. So let's go through the rest of number 2. I think the work with the collaboratives is important, but let's move on down. Recommendation that the state will collaborate with the collaborative leaders to create a new grant program that gives capacity funding to communities that do not have a collaborative group in place that would benefit from them. And then also this looks like this is similar, review the 23, that's the same one we just talked about. So, so obviously that's been on the list twice. So we can put the, how does everyone feel about that? I feel thinking about, is that a recommendation, or how would that be a new program? I don't know. Does everyone want to move that over, or do you feel like we could flesh that out with the other recommendation that we already put on the list? Good. Oh, I see. Okay, James. Side conversation there. Okay, great. So I think those are kind of, we could flesh out those details when we go back to that program. Did someone raise their hand?
Yeah, that was me, Jody Courtney. Yeah, I would say maybe kind of nestle them together, because I think what we were concerned about when I put both of these on the list is like trying to shove too much into Furworm with limited resources and sort of stretching its mission too wide. So I really just want to be kind of defer to the State Forest Service. Like, would they prefer like us move more mission and more money into Furworm, or to have a separate program to kind of expand the mission? So maybe these can be nestled and we can kind of defer to State Forest Service and what would work best for them.
Okay, let's move those both to the other part of the list then, unless I'm going to keep moving through here, and unless you all object. So speak up and pause me or things. The community navigator, and this came up, and we had a conversation, and we had gotten that little document that Courtney had sent out, and this seemed to be an interesting concept and idea. I had a quick question about this, James. How is this different than what's the bill that's happening now?
So that's a really good question. I think I don't know enough about this proposal because it sounds like it's very, very similar. I think the current proposal 1006 is trying to create this community grant navigator kind of discussion. But for right now, it's just a pilot project. And so it's a wait and see if it works. But I think this is stemming from a national program. And so I think we're trying to create this Colorado version to see if it's working. So I think this is one that we could probably, if I were to say something, we could probably take this one off for now, just to, let me caveat that. If 1006 passes and it's implemented and we see its success, we could probably take this one off. If it doesn't pass, this might be one that we can bring back to just be like, let's restart this conversation, because I think they're very similar.
Okay, thank you. How about this idea? I agree with you. How about we just put it on the other list, but put a big note next to it saying if, and, you know, just so that we don't lose, in case it's not in front of us and we lose that conversation. And if you wouldn't, I hate to ask this, but could we, I don't know if you all are interested, but could we get that bill sent to us, or the fact sheet, so we can understand all that's involved with that? I think that would help us kind of understand that. And I don't know if that was the sheet that you already sent before, Courtney, and maybe we need to have it again. So just to make sure everyone understands where we're at on that. And thanks for it, James. I kind of thought they were similar, and maybe we just need to support that. So, okay, number 3, Wildland Fire Mitigation and Management Commission report briefing from the national, this is the national one, and this is from Director Dan Gibbs and Director Mike Morgan that they presented, and that was a great document, and it sounds like a lot of discussion's been happening. I'll be honest with you, I've only gotten through about half of it because I find it so fascinating, and I go back and want to read parts. But number 35 was something that popped out in our discussions, and that's from that document is authorize and incentivize flood mitigation, water quality, and source water protection projects in existing wildfire mitigation and wildfire recovery programs to protect community water supplies. And speaking from, I mean, I'll just, say my county has 2 major watersheds and one that also in the Rocky National Park that impacts the Colorado River. This is certainly a priority for us. And one of the meetings I'm at is how to protect and help the watersheds regenerate. There's a lot there. So thoughts on this? Mr. Morgan.
That was very much on my mind when I was pushing the expansion of the nursery program for the State Forest Service, because I think we really have to ramp that up. You're just not getting the natural regeneration on these sites that you were getting. And so, I mean, I feel like there's lots of other opportunities. We've acted on that one. We're pushing it along, and everybody did a great job. And I'm not beating up Director McCombs here. I know that those are hard stones to roll to get everybody going, but I feel very good about it, and I feel very positive about it. I think it will help when we can start seeing the effects of that. And it's going to be a little ways down the road. We've got to grow trees. We've got to build a nursery. So to me, that's one of your big ones. It won't happen overnight. I guess I would ask, is there anything that we could do to move that along faster? Is there anything else, any tools that you need in the toolbox to move that down the road?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Director McCombs, I saw your hand raised. I was going to call on you anyway, so glad you raised your hand.
I appreciate it. So yeah, this is one of the core commission report issues that have come forward in a couple different places, and we're, in the process. We funded this work that's trying to develop these pre and post fire playbooks, and we'll continue to kind of grow our water and wildfire and watershed and wildfire program as resources become available. I always struggle to not sound parochial when I say things like this, but when we start putting programs in different places, it becomes complex to align and administer them. So I would just want us to be thoughtful about moving forest health related programming into agencies that don't have a historic role in doing so.
That was kind of my thoughts earlier too. Thank you, Director McCombs. So I hear from two of us. We want to move that one over to the list and kind of flesh it out. What that looks like, and I don't know if we have ideas or details. Anyone against that idea? Okay. Thank you. Let's move on. Of course, this is one we have talked about for a long time: removing biomass, disposing of piles, preparing the landscape for prescribed fire, and that was the one that Pat brought up. And so, anyone against moving that over to the list?
That's fine.
Okay. Katie, I take your thumbs up as good stuff. Okay.
Yes.
So administrative recommendations. So we have a list. Let's get through the rest of this document so we can move over to the list. Is that, how many pages more do we have? How far does it go down, Courtney? I'm just looking at my other list. Okay. Administrative recommendations, formalize agency support for collaboration. And this was a recommendation from the Forest Collaborative Network. And does anyone have any thoughts or comments on this? Other than this, they say this is already happening. I'm not sure this will add the benefit of this. So, sorry, any comments on this, Samantha?
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. Just to confirm, for admin recs, those are things that we're just working with agencies directly to recommend. Like, it doesn't have anything to do with legislation.
Yeah, it's kind of what we did last year. We gave some of, I think, 2 or 3 administrative recommendations to the State Forest Service. Director McCombs, go ahead.
Just want to make sure that, like, as we sort of settle into this pattern of administrative recommendations that I recall, I think I just made that up. when we were trying to formulate policy, and I thought, why don't you just tell us to do something? And it's starting to settle in now, which I'm not afraid of. I think actually it's fantastic. It's a great sense of the council to direct agencies to be focused on issues that are important. But I just want to be very transparent that it doesn't come with money, and it's also going to be relatively in stark competition with all the other things that folks are trying to accomplish within the agencies. And as we're trying to implement what we committed to last year, we're struggling a little bit just because of bandwidth and resources and so I just want to make sure that there's a acknowledgement that even these are great, again, things to put it on the radar, but they may not always fit perfectly within the rest of the developed program of work priorities that come through the door unexpectedly. And I just want to, and they're and actually not even grounded in statute. So I don't really know I just want to be careful about how we use this unique tool. I think, again, it's a very valuable way to focus the agencies on things that are important to this council. But I just want to make sure that on the delivery side, on the expectation meeting side, that there's some recognition that we may need to be flexible in how rapidly these things occur and how. And I'm happy
So
to
I'm
take back on that.
Okay, so we have several people. I'm going to comment real quick because I was going to raise my hand too. I think I agree with you 1000%, Director McCombs. We gave you quite extensive 4. I thought it was 3, but there was 4 from last year that are pretty hefty and heavy lifts. And I think that actually one of the things I was going to add to the list today was and I don't know how you all feel about, and these are important, but as you see, they say some of this is already happening, not sure they had a benefit. How do we go back and look at those administrative directions that we gave? Because it did come with no money and came with no capacity or support. And so my thing I wanted to add to the list, and maybe not add administrative directives for this year, but was to come back, because there's still no budget for the Forest Health Council. And if we're going to ask for the strategic planning for the 30-year plan that's still there and all these other things, and the departments are already busy, stretched, lots going on, doing great work, do we ask for for giving some funding and support for those recommendations and giving some money to the Forest Health Council, especially if we're going to try to strategically plan a 30-year group? So that's just my little 2 cents and my recommendation. And this is the order I'm going to go in. Samantha, Mr. Morgan, and then Allison. Unless, Allison, you feel like you want to add in first, you want to go last? Is that okay? Because that's the order. Okay, Samantha.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner, and thanks, Director McCombs. I hear you. It's, we don't want to add additional work if there's not capacity or funding. And so I think I'm in agreement with Julie that if we are going to have admin requests that require additional capacity or funding, that we find a way maybe to include them in our legislative recommendations, especially since a lot of this is oversight of the forest collaboratives, which is something we were recommending to focus on anyway. And maybe it's just a line or 2 about what specifically would help and if there's funding tied to that. So that would be my rec, is that we get rid of that and we just tie it into some of the other ledge recommendations.
Thank you, Samantha. Mr. Morgan.
This is a difficult conversation to have, but in reality, we have to be enablers of the agencies that we already have. It is very difficult for agencies. There's a certain line that they come up against in promoting or selling their own programs. And then they need support from the community. And that's kind of how I view a large portion of our job here, is that we have to get direction back from Director McCombs or whoever, where their needs are. And then we need to take those needs. And if we feel that they are correct and supportive, then we make the sale, we do the hustle, we go out and do the legwork and try to help them achieve these programs that benefit us all. I think that has to be and I've thought this in the past, we can add a whole lot of new jobs for them to do, but in reality, they're the paid professionals, they draw the salary, they have to make their decisions. And then it has to be a combined thing, but then we have to go back and help sell that to the general public in areas or arenas where we may have some influence, or maybe where we could help. And so I kind of think over the years, as I've dealt with different foresters and such, at some point, somebody pulls me aside and I get an earful. This is what we need to get done. How can you help us? We need to help you and enable you to do the things that we're asking you to do. I guess that's kind of convoluted, but that's how I feel about what my job is here today. So for whatever it's worth.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. We appreciate it. Allison, I think your hand was raised.
Yeah, I just want to echo Director McCombs' statement about this idea of maybe not adding some more administrative directives. I'm also just very complimentary of the work already that's gone on to put these administrative directives in place, as I've seen in my new position. And so, yeah, thank you so much for mentioning that, Director McCombs. And then Director McCombs and Director Gibbs have also been having some conversations on some other ways that possibly the 30-year vision could come about that could be very complementary with other statewide planning processes. And so I think we can open up a conversation in future meetings of how we can do that, and we can really integrate the Forest Health Council into real statewide planning.
Great. Okay, well, I'm glad we're all kind of on the same page, because I was thinking, wow, we already gave them some big ones, and I know they're working on that. I'm not sure how we can add. So I think if we could, just for everyone's memory, and a future email, we may just resend all those administrative directions just in case people remind those big ones that we sent. So we're almost out of time. Is there anything else under number 2 there? Okay, can we go to the big list that we have now before we run out of time today? The other list, all the lists that we moved.
Yes, Allison was being really helpful and moving the priority items to the top. So here they are, that we can look at them sort of separately.
About 7 minutes left. I just want to be thoughtful. Some things to think about as we are the next meeting. We can spend a lot of time kind of filling these in with details or thoughts. Is there anything on this list that gives anyone some concerns, or they think should not be on this list for our next discussion? James.
There's not something that shouldn't be on there, but tell me if I misunderstood that last conversation, that there might be an appetite for this group to do a recommendation for funding for the Forest Health Council.
Yes, that was my recommendation. Thanks for bringing that up. My next question was there anything we feel is not on the list? And I was going to say, no, you're fine. Thank you for doing that for me, because then I can see someone else agrees, but I do feel like we have to have that talk, and we've talked about, this, but I think we're seeing that this takes capacity and funding. And so I was going to ask for that somehow, and what that looks like. And if we have maybe by next meeting, we'll have some kind of ballpark. I know it's detailed, list, but 5 million versus 500,000, that's a big, we can at least narrow it there. So Mr. Morgan.
Number 5, removing biomass and disposing of piles. I'd like to look more at when it's appropriate to build or not build piles. Let's quit building a lot of these piles. There's a lot of other alternatives. And so where you're in a hole, quit digging. When you're covered up with piles, quit building them. I think somehow that needs to be included in there.
Okay, so we can, that can be part of our discussion. And thanks for our discussion for next week to kind of fill that in. And thank you for putting these into categories, Courtney or Allison. I don't know who's doing that, but thank you. I can't see the fine print. Okay, so none of them want to be removed. I added the funding. Is there other ones people feel need to be on there? Mr. Morgan.
I just didn't make myself very clear as usual. I think pile building should be under 5, preparing the forest for your 5 is a great category. I would just put it under pile building, whether to build them or not. It's preparing the forest for burning. And say one of the ways you do that is how you operate on the forest and what management systems you use so that you don't have piles that you don't have to dispose of first. I guess to me, the one should just be a branch of your number 5 or a sub portion of it.
Okay. Christy, we've got 4 minutes left.
Okay, and I just put it into the chat box too. But I remember Mark talking about there are issues with how much material can be left on the forest after logging operations. And I'm wondering if we've addressed any of that in here.
Should that go under number 5?
That's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah.
Okay, and then so we have just a couple more minutes left and I don't see any other hand raised. So I was wondering with the funding for the Forest Health Council, if we can put those administrative directives under that. So we remember what we kind of gave directives for, not so we understand maybe kind of the funding that they might need to be able to do those directives. So I don't know if we can add, making sure we remind ourselves kind of what we asked. And then I think one of those was reforestation and that kind of pipeline, how we can support that for getting the regeneration or reforestation, and what kind of recommendations were for that. And that include that seed collection and all that. So I just kind of want to not lose sight of how we get the forest to regenerate. And I think that was part of the watershed. It kind of could fit in either one of those. So Courtney.
Are you asking for the 2023 administrative recommendations to be nestled here? Okay. Yeah, I can pull those in. I'll go back to the report.
Okay, we're out of time. Again, this list is not in cement, so if I think we can get these sent out to everyone and everyone can kind of be ready for our next meeting for any details. I think in the chat, they put the project learning tree and other things in the chat. And so some things to think about what this looks like for our deliberative discussion. And again, keeping in mind things, programs and people and projects cost money. So just kind of thoughts on that. So anyway, any further discussion, comments? How do you think this process went today? Narrowing down, thumbs up. Okay. Well, thank you all. I'm glad we kind of got the list kind of smaller so we can kind of focus the next one and not feel so rushed. And we'll look forward to having this bigger discussion. So once again, because I want to give time for 2 questions. Is an hour and a half going to be enough for our next meeting? Is everyone able to do an hour and a half in 2 weeks?
If you're cracking the whip and you did an excellent job, that would be fine. That's
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, so let's do an hour and a half. And secondly, back to that question, do we want to invite the full council in case they want to come and listen in?
I think you should. It's an opportunity to start preloading these things with these folks, the ones that are willing to show up, so that when we get into the full council meeting, it's not new. It'll be hugely efficient if they're piping in, or at least listening in before the full meeting. It was pretty hard last time. to
Yeah.
get through the stuff.
Yeah, I know. That's why I thought that might be a good idea. So I
Make it an
don't think everyone's,
invitation, but don't make it an engraved invitation.
yeah.
They have to be there.
Don't mention that we're having donuts or food delivered while we're deliberating or something, right? So, okay. All right. So I hear that we were going to do a soft invitation to the full council if they want to come in and listen, and we're going to go an hour and a half. Do we need to vote on that, Courtney, or do you think that's okay for us to just?
Let's just make a vote.
Okay, I'll welcome a motion for those two
So
items in
moved.
one motion. Seconded?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
Is there anyone opposed? Okay, now I'll welcome a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
You're all amazing and awesome. We got through this meeting. Great. Thank you so much. Happy Friday. Enjoy the beautiful, glorious weekend. It was so beautiful in the mountains yesterday, and I wish you all well. Have a great day. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, staff. Thank you, everyone. Great job.
Happy spring, everybody. See you later.
Thanks all.